Welcome to Conversations with Asha and Steve, where communication matters. Join us as we discuss effective ways to communicate, bridge the gaps, and build long-lasting relationships within your business and life. Here are your hosts, Asha Prasad and Steve Harper.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Conversations with Asha and Steve. I am Steve Harper. With me, as always, is Dr. Asha Prasad. Asha, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Steve. I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today.
There was a slight delay,
I
like
can't
you
even
just
wait.
had that deer in the headlights look and
Like,
who is this guy? I don't know. I haven't talked to him in a while.
no, you know what? It's the heat. The heat is melting my brain right now. Sorry.
We need that
It's too hot.
Glenn Fry song. The heat is on.
Exactly. That was funny.
Damn, I should be smart enough to have that queued up, but I'm not. And now, we're not sponsored, so we don't need to get
No.
sued by Glenn Fry's estate either.
No,
So that would be
please,
no
no.
good.
No, thank you.
So yes, yeah, we have no revenue on this show, just in case anybody out there is thinking about, well, hey, because we had that episode earlier where I talked about you being at the top of the mountain, just tossing down bags of money.
Exactly.
Just remember, it was Asha that has the bags of money, not Steve. Just saying.
Right.
Anyway, what's our topic
And-
today?
Exactly. So our topic today is about rising above the noise. And it's really about like all the noise that's being generated on the internet, like the daily posts, the multiple daily posts on every social media platform and everything that's going on. How do you rise above it as an entrepreneur, as a business owner? Because there's so much going on. How do you reach your target audience? How do you reach your customers? How do you reach potential clients? Like, you know, it's really interesting, Steve, because it's one of those things that I think has always been the case in business, right?
Yeah.
Like always, but this takes it to a much different level, I believe. You know, I don't know if you notice that for yourself, that sometimes you just kind of look at all the social media and you're just like, oh, there's just too much. I just can't right now, you know,
Yeah.
because there's too much coming at you.
Yeah, it is. There is just too much. Like I at the end of the day, like don't want to even look at my laptop or my phone, even though I
Yeah.
somehow magically find a way to do both. I am so absolutely overwhelmed with how much stuff that we are exposed to. I heard a study the other day that we get exposed to now over 30,000 messages per day. Email,
Oh my God.
Slack, all the stuff on the web,
Phew.
stuff we're picking up and just,
Yeah.
picking up, in these various channels. And you think about that and it's like, oh my God, we don't
Yeah.
even have the ability to really even clearly define what, we put our time and our energy towards.
Exactly.
I was attending a seminar this week by my good friend, Mara Thomas, who writes on this concept. And she was talking
Right.
about that we're changing our attention like every 30 seconds to something else because there's always
Wow.
something else that is demanding our
Exactly.
attention. Like chances are people that are listening to this podcast probably have 10 apps open on their cell phone.
Exactly.
Or if they're listening to it at their desk, they probably have at least 5+ tabs open, right? I
Yep.
know I'm looking at my desktop. I got 9 tabs open right now.
I was just going to say the same thing. I'm like, I've got like 10 tabs open.
I mean,
why? I don't know.
Wow. Well, I mean, it's wild, but it's like, okay, that's important. This is important. I don't want to lose sight of this.
Exactly.
I can't forget this. I'll never come back to this website if I don't
Right.
keep it open, that kind of thing. And it just becomes compounded. And
Yeah.
I know for like the guys for my software company, they do a lot of tech support and their hands are in a lot of different things. But I went into one of our guys, young guy, Clayton, and, just catching up, seeing how things were going.
Mhm.
And I looked at his desktop and I'm like, oh my God, dude, that gives me a headache because he had like 200 freaking tabs open. I mean,
Oh
I
my
like
God, no.
nested upon nested upon nested. I'm like, how do you find anything? And,
Exactly.
how does that laptop even perform at that level? Because it's so slow. And, but to me, it's like, there is so much noise out there.
Yeah.
How do we get around it? How do we get away from it? I mean, it's a real serious problem. And I think a lot of people, we've become accustomed to it. So we don't really think of it as a problem, but it so severely is.
It is because we're losing our ability to focus. This is one of the biggest problems. And when you can't focus your attention, on
Squirrel.
anything. I mean, think about 30 seconds to a minute. We can only focus. Some people's attention spans is really that short, Steve.
Why are you looking at me? Just don't be looking at me. What?
What?
What'd you say?
What was that? Yeah, no, but it's so true. And what's happening, and then we wonder why young people are having such a hard time concentrating because you said we get 30,000 messages a day, or we're getting bombarded by 30,000 forms of communication or whatever it is, information input. You know how many thoughts we have? Close to 60,000 thoughts in a day, some of them conscious, some of them subconscious. Do you know what kind of traffic that is up in our brain? Think about
Well, yeah,
that.
because if you think about that
Ridiculous.
30,000, right? The 30,000, that's just passive stuff that's pushed to us. Then we
Yeah,
have that
exactly.
60,000 on top of that. Imagine oh my God.
Yes, exactly. And I think that becomes a big problem where first, in order to rise above that, you've got to figure out. I know for myself, one of the things that I figured out earlier on was that I needed, because I know for business wise, you've got to do social media, you've got to do certain things, you've got to be able to put your content out there and out to people and help people, which is great, but it can be quite overwhelming. I mean, I don't know how you do it, Steve, but one of the things that I know I learned early on was to really batch what I was doing. So, if I was going to be recording content, things that I wanted to share with people and reach out to people and help people, I just block out time, and that's all I'm doing. I'm recording all of that stuff because I don't want to be doing that constantly throughout the month. You,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And it's been better. I have found that I have been less overwhelmed and more focused and more streamlined in some ways. And it keeps me from actually getting on social media that much. Of course, I want to get on there to help support friends and colleagues and that kind of stuff and just really engage with her. And there's some very interesting things, but sometimes I'm just like, you know what, that's enough.
Yeah.
I'm just going to focus on what it is that I know that I need to focus on and try my best to really keep my focus that way. It's
Yeah.
tough though.
It is tough, but I wonder, the problem with
Mhm.
it for a lot of people is that so much of our work has shifted to the desktops or our laptops, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
Mara made a really interesting observation. She's like, "How many of you actually have more than one screen that you have to look at?" And she said, "What I have actually
Yes.
found is that,
Yes.
and I'm looking at two right now. I would have three if the other one hadn't crapped out on me, right? Probably because it had too many tabs open, but." It's accurate because she said what you're doing is you're trying to cram all this stuff into all these
Yeah.
different spaces, and then you calculate, you got your cell phone, you got your iPad, you
Exactly.
got all these other ancillary things that are out there, and they're
Right.
all just saying, feed me, give me your
Yeah.
attention, give me focus on me, focus on me. I have a good friend, she's an attorney, and they've implemented, I want to say she's doing it twice a week, but for sure once a week, that her
Hmm.
kids are out of school, that they have screen free days, and
Yep.
she's
That's
doing
good.
it during the week, so that not only are her kids not participating in anything
Hmm.
electronic, but that she's actually trying to convert her work to. She's like,
Exactly.
hey, I may have to do
Yep.
some things a little bit differently. But just because I'm accustomed to using my laptop because I've had conference calls or whatever,
Hmm.
she's trying to do the same. Her and her husband are trying to do the same. And I thought that was pretty ingenious because I was thinking
That's good.
of all the things that I have that are stored on my computer. Obviously you can't edit a podcast. You can't do certain,
Right.
can't send an email if you're not doing it. But what could you do that could actually translate into more of a tactile kind of function, right?
Yeah.
So if I have
Yep.
a list of people that I need to talk to this week, well, why don't I just print that list out? So I've got paper in hand and I have a phone
Exactly.
rather than
Yeah.
call them, and
Yeah.
put all my notes in. I'm going to take notes on a, notepad. I'm going to, use a spiral pen paper. I'm going to use
Right.
the phone for what it is rather than, hey, let's get on a Zoom or let's do this or let's do that.
Exactly.
Trying to convert some of those electronic things that do, because once you open up your laptop, then it's like, everything else you got going
You
on.
get sucked into it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I would like to personally try and implement that once a week myself, just to see if I
I
can.
think
I
that's
don't know that
excellent.
I can, but
Yeah.
it would be interesting to see that. And that's the problem is I think that we don't like the noise, but we've also become addicted to the noise in a big way, right? Because
It is addictive.
I don't do that. How would I do my work? I don't know, Steve. What the hell are you
Exactly.
talking
It's
about?
also, you know what, Steve, the other thing is too, I was thinking about this the other day, is that we're afraid that if we're not putting our content out there, we're not being, throwing our hat in the ring or whatever, we're going to be missing out on something. And the fact of the matter is, one of the things I love about social media, I mean, with some of the platforms more than others, with Instagram, TikTok, and all these other things, when you put stuff out there, it's there. I mean, obviously forever. It's forever on all platforms, but things can get heard or listened to or picked up months later, years later, even. And so I think it's okay to relax about certain things
Yeah,
and
you're
just
not
be like,
missing
what?
anything. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I know that there are some people out there that actually recommend, posting 5 or 6 times a day. I just, there's so many different people out there that recommend that. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how you feel about that, but to me, it's just too much noise. It's just too much.
It's too much noise. It's too much pressure. And at the end of the day, what really is it doing to make anything better, right? Are you just
Yeah,
causing more of the problem?
exactly.
Are you prepared to do things better, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, there's so many ways we could take this topic, just like our other episodes. I mean, I think there's going to be some, interesting feedback from our audience about, some of the challenges, some of the issues that they run into, maybe an opportunity to have a more, a direct conversation about practical solutions that you and I come up with. But really at the end of the day, I would be curious as to what our audience thinks about this topic and how we proceed and go forward with it. So how would they contribute to the conversation here? And not asking them to add to the noise. We're asking them to, to give us their feedback and input on what they thought of this topic and where they'd like to see us take this next conversation as it relates to this subject.
Yeah, so definitely people can reach out to us at conversationswithashaandsteve.com. They can reach out to us on social media. Definitely, if you're catching this podcast video on YouTube, be sure to subscribe, drop a comment below, ask us questions, stay connected that way. And we'd love to hear from you because it's interesting. I'm curious about how many people are really kind of dealing with this and how are they kind of coping with dealing with the noise.
And be honest about it. Tell us. We want to know. Tell us if we're actually adding to the noise. Maybe we
exactly.
We took a very extended hiatus, so we can't possibly be victims of or be part of the problem, right? But
exactly.
no, we do want to hear that feedback because I think it is something that I know we're both personally curious about for sure. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, another great conversation as always, Asha. So thank you so much for it. We'll be back again with another episode of Conversations with Asha and Steve very soon. But until then, Asha, take care.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Conversations with Asha and Steve. We love to hear feedback and questions from our listeners. Please feel free to visit our Facebook page for more tips and information. You can also email us directly at info@ripplecentral.com for more information.